Good morning and welcome to CoachesCorner.health. We are so glad you're here. Today, we're going to be diving into the price of success and the impact it has on our families. You have the career or the business of your dreams and you're in momentum, but now you don't feel like you have time for anything else and your family life is suffering. And what we're talking about is your relationships with your parents, with your siblings, family gatherings, just creating those deeper level bonds with those closest to you. And you're starting to question, maybe even wondering, how the heck can I make it work? How can I pursue my career or build my business without feeling guilty that I have no time for family the way I would like? But in doing this, I realize I most likely will miss out on priceless moments that I can't get back. And so the guilt doubles down. Or you may even ask yourself, how can I go all in on family time when I'm there without feeling resentful that it's taking away time spent on building my business or furthering my career? These are some of the things we're going to dive into more. But before I get started, let me tell you who I am. I'm Leslie Goodette. I'm a self-care specialist for busy female entrepreneurs, and I help them to make self-care their number one priority, to support them in life and business so that they stay sharp, focused, and wake up with more energy and attention to tackle their daily activities with confidence. Andy, tell us who you are.
Thank you, Leslie. I love your introduction every time. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I'm Andy Lidstone. I'm the unconditional coach. I help people with boundaries and control issues and various related topics to those ones. I love the conversation we're having today. The price of success, the things we have sacrificed, especially when we go all in on our career or when we go all in to open up a business, or we often ignore what that costs as far as our personal relationships, our family time. Even if we're single and not really, especially if we're single and not really focusing on having a family in that sense, we still miss out on a lot of our, like you were saying, our parents, our siblings, our aunts and uncles, and our cousins and our nieces and nephews, like all of our extended family. Just because we haven't necessarily gotten married, and some of us have, doesn't mean we don't miss out on family events. There's lots of family, lots of kinds of family. And when we go all in on our careers or all in on a business, I've seen lots of people, myself included, who have sacrificed family to do that. So what does that look like? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so true. I'm not even going to talk about the part where I'm married. I'm going to just talk about specifically family. And it's a lifestyle, too, that you choose to live. So for me, as an example, I've been living sort of a digital nomadic lifestyle where I've been moving from different places. So right there, and this is because I've wanted to be able to have that laptop lifestyle where I can work from anywhere as long as I have good Wi-Fi. And in that instance, that already is putting a strain on those relationships with my family, with my extended family, with my friends, people I grew up with, that know me intimately. And what I found is, those moments become less and less because of being living a location-free lifestyle. That means some of those things get sacrificed. How I've recognized is that I have to intentionally decide to make time for those moments. At one point, and I'm sure our audience can relate, maybe even you can relate, I remember having those moments where it's like, okay, I know that I live in a different place and I want to go back to where I grew up, which is Toronto. But do I want it just to be all about family because I haven't been around and so they haven't seen me, but yet I want to see my friends. I want to explore the city that I grew up in to see all the changes, see what's different. And there were times where I would be thinking, oh, it's like family is getting in the way of me actually enjoying, because it no longer felt like I was on vacation, but was more on an obligatory visit, where I had to go and see everyone. And then the last summer, last August, my husband and I, we actually traveled. We were in Canada. We were living up in New Brunswick for a few months, and we traveled to Toronto. And I have to tell you, it was one of the best vacations that I had ever had because I fit I fit in family so that I could rediscover those bonds and rebuild them and to nurture them. But I also, saw some of the people that were close to me, some friends that were close to me, and started to reconnect with them and rediscover our relationship and making that taking that uh, mindset to like, okay, this is going to be, yes, because I haven't seen family in a while, but I can still, my friends, the people that are close to me, they are family. So
Yes.
if I could look at it from that perspective, it allowed me to make, to be able to like look at it a different way. And going home, as I would say, going to Toronto to visit, my family and my friends who are my extended family, it became more enjoyable. I didn't feel like it was an obligatory visit, but a visit that I wanted to do because I recognize how important family is, including the friendships that I had, how important it is to be connected. It can't all be just about pursuing my business, and growing it. It has to be about other things because what are you doing it for? What if all you're in business for is to either build a business and then you have nothing else, like no one to share it with, there's no joy. Uh, to me, that just made no sense. So, being able to like do that for me was really a pivotal moment for me, and looking at it in a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can relate to that because for me, as I was working different jobs, I was, building my career, um, building a reputation for, being good at what I do. I I did put a smaller priority on, you know, my extended family. I was married with kids at the time, so I did have that local family. But I did put a smaller priority on the extended family, on my parents, on my brother and my sister who were living, thousands of miles away. So I didn't see other people very often at all. Even those people who were within an hour of me, I still didn't see them more than once every few months, kind of thing. Um, and the only people that I did see were people who were living in the same city as me, who made an effort to try and get together with me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I made little effort, and I recognize now that that was an insecurity on my part, but that insecurity enabled me or maybe forced me to focus on something that was more in my control, and that was my career. That was my personal goals of for success, which I didn't include family and friends in those goals right off the bat. I have now, as I've become a coach, as I've gotten into business for myself, I have included family and friends in my goals.
Mm-hmm.
But originally, I hadn't when I was pursuing my career. Um, I did include my wife and my children, but at the same time, I didn't include anybody else. So I can relate to that in that it really I did really sacrifice a lot to have that. And when my mom eventually passed away, I hadn't talked to her for several years, partly because we had a strained relationship, and partly because I didn't put any effort into seeing my family. You know, so it was a sacrifice that I made. Not really to the same level that we're really talking about in the description of this video. Um, Sometimes we do really just focus on our careers completely, to the expense of all else. And although I didn't quite do that, I did find it easier to focus on my career than it was to focus on friends and family. I found I made the choices, um, to focus on my career more, just because friends and family I didn't find much value in until I got into the coaching industry, until I got into personal development and self improvement, and I started making friends who had values similar to mine. That was when I first started um, actually valuing relationships outside of work. When I started finding people who believed what I believed and who wanted what I wanted. Um, so for me, that was the hard. That was the key difference. Is my family didn't have the same values as I had, so I didn't put high priority on it. Um, but yeah, this is what what do we lose when we focus on our career? What do we lose when we focus on success or achievement or goals? What do we sacrifice? And is it worth it? Like, what are we missing out on? Right. Those are questions that some of us, but not all of us, ask. Right?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think, yeah, we have to look at the family dynamics too, because not everyone has like that healthy family, and that's just other work that has to be done. But if you are in that, if you have a family that you enjoy being around, especially when you do go all in those moments, is at what point does it become more about your career or your business than it becomes about really, I think, quality of life? Because I think it's really, when you think about it, it's more about not necessarily about spending time with family, but because that's part of it, but it really does, it really is around quality of life. And your quality of life is, spending time with your friends, spending time with your family, doing fun things. I mean, because what's the point of just working? I know how I felt when, before I got into, being my own, businesswoman. I remember, uh, really feeling like I didn't have a life to actually even enjoy because it was all working. But that was because the career choice, uh, that I had chosen for myself, the more I recognize that a lot of companies, and this is just, it just seems to be the, model that a lot of companies are taking, is how can we maximize the people, and with less overhead, meaning not as many people filling positions. So instead of you doing the one position and someone else filling another role, how can we have that one person take on two roles? And I've found that in a lot of, and especially in the industry that I've been in for 40 plus years, that, even though I am working in a different capacity as my own boss, and supporting people by giving of my time that I choose, I still found while I was going through the industry that a lot of companies were making it more around, um, like, how can we maximize this by maybe giving someone two roles instead of having two people, have one person do both things. So then, of course, quality of life then went down for me because then I was working longer and harder. And, you know, that model, I think, is really something I think a lot of corporations could and their employees could benefit from them taking a closer look at and seeing why, looking at this model. Because you can even look at, just statistically, there's, a lot of the younger generation, not to go off topic too much, but a lot of the younger generation is feeling burnt out already,
Mm-hmm.
and they haven't even gotten as far as you and I have in life,
Right.
in what we've experienced. So yeah, I at one point was forced to, um, just based on what I was, my job, was forced to really sacrifice a lot of family time for work. And that was not of my own doing. But I think, as because I took back my time and then allowed myself to structure my life a certain way, I'm able to less and less, to sacrifice that. And it's allowed me to have more quality of life.
Yeah, yeah. And quality of life is the key answer there. Like you said at the start, we do have to consider family dynamics because all of us have different dynamics and different situations in our families that we prefer to avoid and different situations that we prefer to be involved in. So sometimes we miss those events on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and maybe for some of us who focus on our career or our business, that might be an underlying factor as to why we chose to in the first place. We're growing up and family life wasn't exactly pleasant, and we go off to college or university, and we build we get some training, we do some thing, we get into a career that's really fulfilling, and for the first time we're starting to feel like we have some control in our life, and we can start guiding where we want to go. Maybe we hadn't felt that in our family, maybe you hadn't felt that in our home life. So now we have starting to have some say in our life, and that can really change how we interact with our family if the dynamics weren't what we preferred they would be in our family, and our career gives us more of that. It really can change how we approach our family, how we approach the balance between the two. And this is why a lot of us aren't, it's not until we're in our 40s and 50s and even later sometimes that we realize, wait a minute, I've missed out on so much. You know, I want to get some of that back. Sometimes it's when a parent gets sick, or a sibling gets sick, or somebody has an accident someplace, or there's some sort of a significant event in the family that we missed out on. Sometimes it takes a few of those before we go sit back and go, wait a minute, I've missed out on a lot of things. And aside to that, a lot of times when we're building our career, when we're focusing on our career, when we're focusing on our business, when we're focusing on success, as we've defined it that way, um, the people we tend to hang out with on a daily basis, even our social life, tends to be more coworker related kinds of people. When we're that heavily focused, we might go out, for dinner or to have drinks or something like that, but it'll be more often with coworkers than it would be with, family and friends. So even in those scenarios, we still are focusing more on our career, or we might go out with our bosses. I have a friend who was who has been working as a manager at his, at the company he works for, running the company himself, but the boss is also there every day. And the boss would take him and his family out for dinner, often, a couple times a month, sometimes more than that. And that was a lot of their social time. Um, he would spend the time with his wife and his kids, but he wouldn't often go out without them. He wouldn't often go anywhere unless it was the whole family. And the only time that really happened was when his boss took him and his family out for dinner. And now, of course, he also had other things that he did. His family did other things in the summertime, but there was still him and his wife both focusing on their careers. And it really does have an impact when we don't focus on our personal relationships, the ones that are not part of work. It does have an impact, and sometimes we turn around and wonder where everything's gone, what happened. So this is an important topic because we don't realize what we're missing out on. For me, I intentionally didn't want to hang out with my family because I felt, like I said, there was a lot of misalignment in values and things. So I intentionally separated from my family in that way. But maybe not all of us do that for that reason. Maybe some of us just choose the career instead. But I do think family dynamics does have a part of it. It does have something to do with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and I like how you brought that up about, focusing on, they're both focusing on their careers, but the family time, even though they did other things, there was still that the only time we really do anything when it seems like they had that the boss would take them out, so he's not really doing anything for himself. And I think we equally need to have time for ourselves aside from family time.
Yes.
um and when we do go out, could it not be just as a family unit? I think, and when they focus so much on how to further their career, how to continually build their business, and the time spent with family nurturing those bonds gets sacrificed, or it suffers in some way. I kind of compare it to, you know, two parents. Finally, the kids are all gone. They've gone to college. They've moved out,
Yeah.
and they call that the empty nester syndrome. And they're looking at each other like, okay, now what do we do? Because now we have to get to know each other. So instead of creating that bond and deepening that bond as a family, going through life together, including all of those moments when the kids are going off to college, then they finally move out, and then you're transitioning into just the two of you, then that would seem like a flawless transition if you did the nurturing the entire way. But I think what happens, just like a career, just like a business, is that we tend to focus on the thing that takes the most focus. So, like if you have kids, because I've noticed my friends who have kids, I don't have any children, but my friends who are married, who have children, it's always been around the kids. What can I do for the kids? What can I get for the kids? How are the kids doing? Are they okay? It was always focused around their care, never around what their needs were. And then now you look at them and their kids are finally getting ready to move out on their own, getting married, going out and moving out on their own, having families, leaving the two of them to now start building their relationship. Or you could look at it a different way, going to a job that you have for 40 years, 30 years, and then you're retiring, and that's when you decide to live. That's when you decide to go out and enjoy life. So instead, why we talk about things like this is bringing your awareness around to maybe a scenario that you're already living, and maybe figuring out a way like to switch the mindset, like how I was saying in the beginning. I looked at, being away so far from all my family, and having going home to visit the place where I grew up, and feeling obligated that my time had to be spent only with them, and not realizing that my friends, the ones that I have those deeper bonds with, they are like family. I can look at it from a different perspective, that makes me feel good about actually making that visit around that. So I think, yeah, there's just so many different ways to look at it, but I think we tend to, um, it's unfortunate, but we tend to focus on the one thing that is like takes the most focus, and we forget about, the bigger picture, the bond between husband and wife, the bond between husband, wife, and kids. Just that alone, the bond between husband, wife, kids, and extended family, and making sure that you have that. And I know families like that make sure they have the bonds with the extended family are still cultivated. I've got two families that I follow, one who I've known for over 40 years, and one who I've known for 6 years. And I've been watching their journey as how they show their life on social media, obviously, but they show their life in such a way that they're saying, hey, this is important just as much as building my business or furthering my career. So, yeah, it's just bringing that awareness to it.
Yeah, and it is about bringing awareness to it. It is about focus. It is about choosing your values. And a lot of time, as we start a career, or as we're getting into university, or as we're leaving home and deciding to start adulthood, we choose a set of values because we're all ambitious and we're all, excited about life, or we're excited to be, out on our own, and doing the adult thing, or whatever the case may be, where we're transitioning away from the dependence on the family. So the things that we choose to prioritize at that point in our life tend to be more on, what future I can have. Now, like you said, there are some people who even at that age choose to prioritize family. I've known several myself, um, and a lot of us don't. A lot of us choose to prioritize our own needs, our own careers, our own success plan. And I guess those are the people we're talking to with this particular video, is those people who've chosen to focus on what they want for their career, for their business, whatever it is they're doing to support themselves. They've chosen to focus on that, to create some version of success, to create some version of what they would call success, to give them the ability to look back on their life and say, yeah, I did that. So for those of us who have done that, who have made that sacrifice, it can feel like we were missing out. We'll turn around, several years later, or even a few decades later, and go, what did I miss out on? There are several things in my family that I missed out on. I nearly missed out on my two siblings getting married, because they were so far away from me, and they coincidentally each got married 2 weeks apart. Because they were several thousand miles away, I was not financially capable to go see them. Luckily enough, at the time, I was dating somebody who valued family and wanted me to go see them. So her and I drove out there, spent 2 weeks staying in my truck and seeing the sights. Between the two weddings, we went out for my brother's wedding, and then we did a lot of sightseeing and touristy things for 2 weeks, and then we went to my sister's wedding afterwards, and then we drove home. So had it not been for her generosity, I would not have even seen that, even my sister and brother's weddings. It would have, I wasn't prioritizing it to the level that she was. And I look back on it now and I appreciate that. Just, it wasn't something I was prioritizing at the time. So we do miss out, and sometimes it does come down to what is important. What we decide is important to us at the time. What I'd like to offer our audience is, when you're making your plans for your future, when you're making your plans for success, when you're deciding what you want to do with your life, consider who has been important to you in your past and who might be important to you in your future, and leave room for some of those things. Now, I'm not suggesting that you take your 2-week vacation every year and go see family. But I am suggesting that maybe, every second or third Christmas holidays, or every second or third spring break, or some combination thereof, you do, go make some effort to go and see the people you grew up with. And by the people you grew up with, I'm talking about like what you're talking about, the friends, the schoolmates, the classmates, the people that you grew up with, whether you're directly related to them or not, or whether they're fond memories and people that you remember being around. Make some space for them. Don't necessarily dedicate all of your spare time to them. You should dedicate some of that to the rewards of your success. If you've earned some success in your career, or you've built a business that's created some success for yourself, or you've earned some vacation time, then certainly use that. go camping or go to a show or travel to Europe or whatever the thing is that you want to do those things also. But also make some time for those people you grew up with, because you'll you'll remember one day what that feels like to have those, and you will regret not having them. Most of us do regret not being in their lives several years or even a few decades down the road. So make some time for that. The rewards will be well worth it, even if you don't see them right away. And be careful of those relationships that are strained. Work on them if you can, and but don't put a lot of effort into people who aren't good, who don't want to put effort into the relationship themselves. So I guess what I'm saying is just be kind to your family, and remember that at some point in your future you'll probably want to reconnect with them. So make that a little easier on yourself by not losing the connection too drastically when you're younger. I do wish I would have kept in closer contact with some of my family members. As a matter of fact, not my parents and my siblings, but my aunts and uncles. I seriously miss them. I didn't see most of my aunts and uncles from the point I was a child until just a few years ago. So probably 30 years I didn't see most of my aunts and uncles. I have cousins I've never met. I don't know who they are. So, I would rather have had some of those times with those extended family and gone to, a family reunion or two, or gone to visit some people that I used to know. Um, it's important to keep those things alive. So you never know when you're going to want those relationships, when you're going to miss those people. Um, Many of them now I can't go visit for various reasons. Either they've passed away, or I don't even know. I don't know anybody who even knows how to get a hold of them anymore. So, at some point you will want to reconnect with a lot of those people. So just keep some of those connections alive. That'd be my suggestion.
Yeah, I agree with you too. And one of the reasons why too is that as you get older, this is just a fact. Okay, most people I know start to reminisce, remember
Yes.
when, and so if you have those reminiscing moments where remember when, and you have those connections still with your family and your friends that meant the most to you when you were growing up, and you still cultivated those relationships all the way through to now you're in your late 30s going into your 40s, or you're in your 40s going into your 50s or even older, then you have you have those people in your life that have the potential to do those reminiscing moments with, like remember when, and then even be reminded of like some of your successes, like thinking like, oh, I remember when you did this, and you'll be like, oh, I don't remember. Then you're like, oh, right. And it can remind you of why you do what you do. And it also helps, I think, with especially when uh, I know as a woman transitioning from like a career into being an entrepreneur, having those relationships with those people who supported me when I was younger, and continuing those relationships, they potentially are now supporting me as I pushing further into being an entrepreneur, building my business, and all of the goals that I'm setting, and they're right there with me, enjoying my successes. They're cheering me on, and I have that relationship. But if you cut those relationships off, and this is why I'm telling you, if you cut those relationships off, and you find now years later that you wish you'd kept in touch, like Andy has said, some of the people he wished he kept in touch with, he now cannot find. He has no idea how to look for them. I'm sure there could be a way, but for the just for all sakes and purposes, right now, immediately, he doesn't have the answer, and so you would rather have, I would think, that quality of life really does extend to having those relationships of those people that really care about you, to continue supporting you as you continue either furthering your career or building your business or whatever that looks like. And then what's great about this as you get older, then look at your grandparents. When they talk about the good old days of things of like what they grew up and some of their experiences, imagine what you can share with the younger generation, even in the younger generation of your family members, whether it's extended cousins, extended, if it's grandchildren, great grandchildren, whatever that looks like, or cousins, uh, their kids, or however that, or nieces and nephews and their families, and being able to impart wisdom, to talk about your good old days and be able to reminisce on that, helps you to still bring more joy and gratitude into your life, and can also inspire them to like, oh, I can do this too, or I've been thinking about this, and create these conversations, sparking these conversations. So that's why when we say, having a career is fantastic. Furthering your career is fantastic. That's great, because you want to have something to strive for. It's always good to wake up and have a purpose. Building your business, the same thing, but it's at what sacrifice? Sacrificing of your own personal life, where you then don't have people to support you. It can be a very lonely existence, and so that's why we're having this conversation today. Like, the price of success and the impact that it has on our family relationships is based on what we've decided. What's more important is our family, is having quality of life more important, so that I can have both family life and business life or career life. I mean, because you can. That to me is like having it all. Is but having it your way. It's not like one size fits all. It's like what
Right.
works for you, so that you're not having those regrets of missing out, so that you don't miss out maybe on the birth of someone's child that you would have been so excited to have known about, but you lost touch. um, you want to continue building it, because, like, again, end days when they come, you talk about it. There's a book out there, Bonnie Ware. She was a palliative care nurse who works with people in their last, in hospices, in their last weeks of being on this planet. And a lot of their regrets in life are not, not having those connections with family, not, maybe not doing some of the things that they wish that they had done, and having those connections is one of the big ones. So this is why we talk about this, to help you improve your relationships, not only with like your work colleagues, but your family as well, so that you have quality of life. And I think that's why we wanted to have these discussions as we've been moving through this year, this series.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other side of that too, I wanted to touch on that a little bit too. The other side of the conversation, what I mean by that is, when when should it be okay to sacrifice family, to sacrifice those relationships? When is it fine to do that? When is it okay to look at the the choices we make and decide that what we want is more of my own career, my own goals, my own choices, um, my own business, whatever that may be. Um, when is that a better choice? Because sometimes it is. As we've alluded to several times, we don't always have healthy or positive family dynamics. And if you happen to have one of those families where they're, not quite supportive, or maybe downright toxic, as many of us do, um, you know, I remember several stories of family members getting into fist fights and, breaking things over each other's heads and things like just horrible things that I didn't want to be a part of, let alone have my kids be a part of. It's you get to choose. Um, we don't get to choose who our family is, as far as blood relatives and who's married into the family and such. But we do get to choose how much time and attention we give them. So when your family is harmful to your life or to those you love. It might be okay to focus more on your career. It might be okay to focus more on your business. It might be okay to focus more on your immediate family, your spouse, your children, and build that extended family or build that replacement family, as you were talking about, which are friends. Those people that maybe they were people you grew up with, or maybe like myself, there wasn't even any of those that you wanted to hang out with. So you create friends as adults and you create a new family as an adult. Um, it's we're not suggesting that you should keep your family ties no matter what, but we are saying that you should put some effort into your family, even if they're not quite the same as you, even if they're just not quite understanding your goals or don't really understand what you want, or you know maybe they think everybody should settle down and have a family and you've decided to work on your career instead, or maybe they don't like that you are dating somebody outside of their culture, whatever the thing is. um, those things we can get past. But if your family is actually toxic or dangerous or downright abusive, um, put some limits on how much time you do spend with them. Like, it's okay to limit how much time you spend with your family. As a matter of fact, it's not just okay, I'd suggest it. I would suggest keeping in contact. This is why I mentioned, you know, every second or third Christmas or every second or third spring break, once in a while, go visit people. Every few years, make sure you do the rounds. You know, or maybe one year you visit this part of family, and another year you visit that part of family, and that sort of thing. And do keep in contact with them through telephone or social media or email or whatever. Do that. And um, for those family members who are not just less supportive but downright hurtful, limit your attachment to them, limit your contact with them, because that can have a negative effect on your life just as much as as any other bad relationship can. So we're not saying that you should at all costs keep in contact with your family, but we are saying that please consider that even if they're not quite the same as you will at some point will still want to talk to them. Those relationships are important unless they're actually toxic or dangerous. They will be important to you. At some point, you will want to reconnect with them. So I just wanted to touch on that other side of the conversation, because sometimes we do. Some people decide family is first no matter what, and they keep connections with family members that maybe would be better to move on from. So, as in all things that we talk about on this channel, there is no absolute the right way, but there is. I do believe that both of us have gotten older in our lives, and there is times when you're going to want to wish that you had some connection with your family. So when it's possible, when it's feasible, when it's not going to hurt you emotionally to do so, then keep connections with family. Maybe don't completely sacrifice your family for your career. Maybe make some time in your career. Maybe make some time in your career for yourself, for your family, for your extended family, for those friends you grew up with, for those people that you don't really talk to much anymore but would still like to be friends with. Maybe make some time for those things, especially after you've gotten your career off the ground, after those first 2, 3, 5 years of beginning and really figuring out who you are. At that point, it's good to reconnect with some people. But again, be careful of those that could cause harm, that could bring more harm than good to your life. I just wanted to call attention to that part.
Yeah, no, I love that you did that, because you want to make it all rounded, as far as, like, again, we talked about there is that talk. There are those toxic family members, and that's just like that's like a whole other video series that we could go into, because that that means that you intentionally, each member of the family, they have to decide, what they want to work on. So that's not what this video is about. We really just wanted to talk about making sure that you have a well-rounded quality of life, so that
Yeah.
you go through life not just all about work or career, and that you have that time with creating those deeper bonds with the people closest to you,
Yeah.
whether it's family that are blood relatives or extended family relatives, through your brothers and your sisters or your cousins, your aunts and your uncles, all of them. Or it's your friends, people who have become really close to you, and their families, and they become extended family to you. Whatever that looks like to you, family is family. As far as like, for me, I truly believe that it blood is, yes, we know blood is family, but it takes more than that to be family to me. It's not
Hmm.
just about being born of the same parents or in the same family. That's not enough. There has to be more to the relationship. So I'm really glad we had this conversation today. I think we've kind of like stretched it out. I don't know if there's anything else that we can cover. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on before we decide to wrap it up?
No, I think I covered the things that I wanted to cover. I think you're right. I think we've talked about this about as much as we need to. Um, we've said all the things we wanted to say. Like, there are times when it's okay to focus on your family. There are times when it's okay to focus on your career, and there are times when it's okay to maybe leave your family behind and focus on yourself for a while. So I think we've touched on all the relevant topics, and I thank you for that conversation, for this conversation. As always, I love our conversations. These ones are great. Um, and yeah, I don't regret all of the sacrifices I've made, but I do regret um, not spending more time with some of my family members. Certain ones I wish I would have spent more time with, but a lot of them, especially my more immediate family, my brothers and my sister, my brother, my sister, and my parents, I spent not much time with them, and the time I did spend with them was probably enough. I wish I would have known more about my extended family, my aunts and my uncles and my cousins and such. I wish I would have spent more time with them, maybe gone to some family reunions and that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, it's these things are important to us. Um, Not all family is good, but in every family, there's usually a few people that are. There's usually a few people that aren't, and it's up to us, each of us individually, to decide which ones are good. So as we go through our life, as we focus on our career, as we build our version of success, it's important to keep in mind where you came from and who has had a positive influence on your life that you might regret losing contact with later on in life. So that's, I think, what I wanted to say. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add. So thank you, everybody, for
No.
listening.
Yeah, I think that's you kind of summed it all up. I think this is great. I want to say thank you all to for those of you who have watched this video live. For those of you who are watching this video back, we appreciate you. We hope that this was helpful to hear today. And if you know of anyone who really may need to hear some of the things that we're talking about, please share the videos around. Share the link to the channel, so that they can start diving into the content that we have been sharing. And as always, if you have any questions, you have something that you want us to cover that might be relevant to the conversations that we're having, please feel free to uh, email us. Our emails are in the About section, and you are more than welcome to email us. We are open books. And again, this is about us serving you, our community. We're thankful that you're here, and we hope that you have an amazing day, a fantastic week, and we'll see you next Saturday here at 10 Eastern. See you soon.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.